Hello and welcome back to another video today here again on Forza Horizon 5 to take a look at the brand new Audi RS4 Avant, which was available for 20 points in last week's festival playlist. Last week we took a look at the VW truck that was in Car Pass that week, and as promised I said we would take a look at the Audi RS4, just slightly delayed putting out the video for this one. It is the only interesting new Audi added in the previous series. The two Car Pass ones were so boring, I've actually forgotten what they were. So the RS4 is basically a baby RS6, which is the coolest Audi currently in production, although I would have preferred to have the new RS6 itself though, to be honest. This, however, does look amazing, particularly in the green paintwork with the sunlight reflecting off it, even if it seems to have a slightly broken parcel shelf in the boot that's at a wonky angle for some reason. I also particularly like the interior inserts on the steering wheel that match the exterior colour. I do like that they're starting to match some of the interior to the exteriors on some of these new cars, even if it is only with the manufacturer colours like this green. It has a 2.9 litre twin-turbo V6 engine, producing 444 horsepower and 600 Nm of torque, and being a big estate car with all-wheel drive, which of course it has because it's an Audi, it weighs a massive 1,790 kilos, which is rather unsurprising, like I said. It does, however, sit at an overall performance index here on Forza of a 751, completely stock, which seems quite low given how fast it feels. It is absolutely ridiculous for a car this big, absolutely took off the line. It just shouldn't accelerate that fast when it weighs that much. Of course it does have quite a lot of power. The only thing with all of this performance is it does come at a massive cost of nearly £70,000 here in the UK at least. However, given the performance and the practicality all rolled into one great package, and how cool Audi estates are in general, these performance ones, it doesn't sound that much. Yes, it's still a lot of money, but it kind of makes it sound more reasonable when you see the performance you're getting for it. It did rather surprisingly kick the back out quite easily, despite being all-wheel drive, but it meant it was quite fun to throw it around some of the corners. It did, on the downhill of the motorway, manage to reach all the way to 202 miles per hour on the downhill, which gives you some idea how quick this thing actually is, and the acceleration and handling and everything is very, very good for a car of this weight. It does have 400 horsepower, but by today's standards that's not actually a lot. But given how fast this thing was at the handling section and in a straight line, it does make me wonder what the benefit is to having the RS6. It kind of has made that car a bit pointless, this one being as good as it is. It can't be much faster than this, and even if it is, there's not a lot of point being faster than that. And the RS6 costs over 100,000 if you spec it up, so yeah, I'm not really sure what the point of that car is at this point. So there was me saying at the beginning I'd have preferred the RS6. I'm not sure it would have been much advantage, because this thing is just ridiculously fast as it is. So, as with all new cars, I brought the Audi RS4 to the festival for 5 laps to see what the best time we could get out of it was. So remember, it's sitting at A751, so we're expecting to get around a 109, 110 based on other cars' performances previously, and around the festival this car actually felt surprisingly good. It disguises its weight really well. They've somehow made it so it doesn't just understeer like Audis traditionally do. Despite being that heavy and all-wheel drive, it handles quite well, and you occasionally even get the back kicking out, but it's nice and light on its feet, which is odd given how heavy it actually is, and it did feel reasonable, although I think maybe a lot of its PI is wasted in horsepower and straight line speed, where it's not actually as good handling as a lot of the other cars we've taken around here. So for a big all-wheel drive estate it felt good, but most of the other cars we lap round are sports cars in the end, and they're a lot lighter and rear-wheel drive and kind of designed for this kind of thing, whereas this is a family car with a big engine put in it, and that kind of showed in its final time. So the big Audi set a time of 111.219, which isn't too bad. It's faster than a TTRS, for example, from the same year. So that's not really too bad that it's faster around a track than a sports car, but it does have a lot more power than that and is more PI than that. So it's kind of sitting roughly where you'd expect it, although something like a BMW Z4 did a 109.8 and that's only 1 PI higher. So it's kind of there or thereabouts where you'd expect it, but kind of a shame it wasn't quite into the 110s, which I'm sure is possible. 19s I'm not quite sure it would manage. So it's kind of where you would expect for the PI, almost. It's kind of slightly slower than I was hoping. Like I say, I think a lot of the PI is wasted on power, although it doesn't handle that well, being as heavy and all-wheel drive as it is. Although, considering all of that, it did drive very well. So not too bad, just not quite as fast as I would have hoped. So in terms of upgrades and customization, there are 3 engine swaps available: a 6.2-litre V8, a 5.2-litre V10, and a 3-litre inline-6 turbo. It's got a rear-wheel drive swap as usual, in case you're mad and want to ruin your Audi, usual Forza aero, but also an ABT kit, which you see on the car here, including front and rear bumpers, the rear now having quad tailpipes, and a side vent behind the front wheel. So I built the Audi to the top of S1 class before returning to the festival for 5 more laps. A 59.1 is the time to beat in S1 class so far, although given the mad build I've put on this, I'm not quite sure it's even probable to get anywhere near that. So although I don't usually swap engines, I've put in the 5.2-litre V10 that I mentioned earlier, in this case to make it more like the RS6s of old, which is just a cool engine swap to have available for this thing. I've kept the ABT body kit, put full width slicks, full weight reduction, race suspension and anti-roll bars, almost maxed out that V10 engine including turbocharging it, although those and a couple of other parts weren't quite maxed out. It's got a race gearbox and bits and wheels to drop the PI slightly. It's brought the total weight down to 1,486 kilos, although that engine is pretty heavy I think, and power is now up to a massive 909 horsepower, which made it rather undrivable really, to be honest, which is kind of to be expected given how much I did to it, and it means the lap time it set was pretty terrible. So the best time I could get out of the S1 class Audi RS4 was a 101.9, making it almost a second slower than the next slowest car, which was the BMW M8 Competition, and substantially slower than the 59.1 set by the XJ220 TWR, which isn't all that surprising. It is still a very heavy car, and I did put a particularly mad and stupid set of upgrades on this time around. So if you do go and get hold of this thing, which I think you should, it's unbelievably cool, make sure you leave it stock and don't upgrade it like I have. But do go and get it, because it is unbelievably cool. It's as fast as you'd want an Audi estate to be, meaning, although I would have preferred the RS6, this is more than good enough and more than fast enough stock. It comes with the option of that really cool ABT kit and a V10 engine swap, so you can make it a bit like an old RS6 if you really want to, although I wouldn't recommend that if you're looking to drive it quickly. That's just a cool set of upgrades that's not particularly useful. But I think whatever you did with this thing, it would never be particularly fast, so do go and get it, but do leave it stock. But there we go. That is going to do it for a first look at the Audi RS4 Avant here on Forza Horizon 5. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back with the next video very soon.